Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is LBJ, and I am the host of EPW's Countout. I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up on this week's episode and say that it's going to be a little bit different than what you're used to, but that is because I'm having some technical difficulties on the edit that I had recorded, and I really wanted to get an episode out this week because I didn't get one out last week. So this is kind of a more rough and raw cut of things. It's probably going to be a little bit shorter than what the podcast normally is, but there were some topics that I wanted to talk about and give my opinions on, as well as still trying to cover as much news, who in my opinion are the top 5 wrestlers of this week, and some predictions. So we're gonna get right into this episode, and like I said, it's not gonna be as polished, it's not gonna have the bells and whistles on it, and for that I apologize, but I'm trying to do what I can to get the episode out because I missed you guys last week. I had some personal issues that kept me away from getting the episode out in time, and I definitely didn't want to miss 2 weeks in a row. So I hope you guys enjoy what this will be. I'm interested to hear how you feel about some of these topics and my opinions on them, and as always, I hope you support everything we do here at EPW, because this is made by the fans, for the fans. So with that being said, let's get into it. Okay, into our news topics for this week. Is he or isn't he? When it comes to Bandito, early reports said that Bandito was offered a deal and had signed a deal with AEW after his match last week against Chris Jericho on Dynamite. However, reports later, as in early this morning, have stated that Bandito actually has not signed a deal yet, that he has been heavily considered, that Tony came to him after their match and said that he needed Bandito in AEW. And that Jericho even tried to push, encouraging him to sign with them, but that he also has had some conversations with WWE. Sounds like Bandito's in the best case scenario for Bandito, that he's got these opportunities. Where he goes, we don't actually know yet, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple weeks. In more AEW news, FTR is unhappy with Tony Khan's booking of them after the Royal Quest match they had against the United Empire. FTR took mics to talk with the crowd, they put over their opponents, and then they addressed Tony Khan and basically said, "Book us, brother." I do not know how this will go for FTR. I'm assuming it won't result in any form of punishment towards them, because arguably FTR is one of, if not the greatest tag team AEW has currently right now that could be fully utilized. And it's just interesting how some of this is starting to turn inwards on itself when it comes to AEW, but we'll talk more about that in just a bit. I have got a bundle of WWE news that I'm going to kind of push all together in this little bit of an edit. Since we're without the bells and whistles, and this is the second attempt at everything, as I previously mentioned. But there is growing concern for Randy Orton in WWE due to the status of his injury. Apparently, reports are indicating that he might be out for much longer. There's, that also raises the conversation with someone who's had the career like Randy Orton on if he will return, things of that nature. Personally, I think Randy Orton will be back. I just think it is a setback that's taking a little longer, and that happens, but I think he will come back and he will be the Randy Orton that we all know and love. there is a gimmick change scheduled as soon as possible for dummy, Max Dupree. aka LA Knight. As we've been seeing on SmackDown, with him showing little signs here and there, reportedly he was already listed internally on their roster as LA Knight, so we might even see that change as soon as tonight's SmackDown. Speaking of tonight's SmackDown, Variety.com had reported that starting tonight, we are getting a change-up of commentary teams. We're rolling out the season premieres, as WWE calls them, and they are changing up the commentary teams. Notably, the biggest change, I think, is that we are getting back to a two-man booth, that the three-person teams are fading away, going away. I don't know if that's temporarily or permanent, but it seems as though right now we're going with a two-man booth, and that's how things are going to be. For tonight's SmackDown, your new commentary team will be Michael Cole and Wade Barrett, moving over from NXT. Wade Barrett had mentioned that he would be back on NXT, and I'm assuming that's because of Pat McAfee once he is done with his ESPN College Game Day role. When he comes back, he will be back on SmackDown, so Wade Barrett will probably be moving back to NXT, but it'll be a nice refreshing change for a little bit to hear these two call the show. Moving on to Raw, Jimmy Smith has now left the company. We have Corey Graves and Kevin Patrick, who has been a backstage interviewer, will now be on the lead for Monday Night Raw, which I also think will feel refreshing and will be an interesting dynamic to see. Then that leaves us with NXT. Vic Joseph still staying there. As I mentioned before, Wade Barrett probably going to come back, but temporarily on SmackDown. So I don't know if this next person is a temporary replacement or just going to be a third person once Wade Barrett comes back. But Vic Joseph is going to be joined by WWE Hall of Famer and the five-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion Booker T. Which that in itself will cause quite a dynamic change for NXT, in my opinion, as it's already kind of rebranding itself. Interested to see if the shucky ducky quack quack moment will end up on NXT each week while Booker T is there. Moving past tonight's SmackDown and past the commentary teams, we have former UFC fighter Daniel Cormier is going to referee the Fight Pit match for Extreme Rules between Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. Daniel Cormier had been mentioned years ago as potentially a role in WWE, potentially facing Brock Lesnar, and then potentially on the broadcast team at one point. So with him finally coming in and doing something, I don't know if this will lead to more, but one has to assume and speculate that it may. The next thing, of course, there's more White Rabbit clues. They've been dropping the QR codes. There's been all the links off the websites. It takes you through Instagram. They have various TikTok accounts that show up that play some images, play some videos, leading to speculation. Guys, I'm almost certain, as I'm sure everybody watching this, that this has got to be for Bray Wyatt. And I think Bray Wyatt returns at Extreme Rules. The build for this has been insane, and in a good way. I don't think it's been overdone too much. I just think there were so many layers, and they just kept building it and building it and building it, and I think it's time to hit that crescendo. And I think Bray Wyatt, I'm not sure if he's the Fiend, but I think Bray Wyatt shows up at Extreme Rules tomorrow night. Speaking of the White Rabbit clues, this longer story, Bray Wyatt, all of this stuff, Rob Fee, who has worked in horror movies, who's worked with Bray Wyatt on some things, has been signed to the WWE in what a lot of people are very hopeful based off the term of his role. He is the director of long-term creative. And I can just tell you right now, hearing the phrase long-term creative associated with WWE is a very warm welcome for me. And I hope that if it's anything like we've seen so far or better, that it stays that way for a long time. WWE has suffered, in my opinion, for so many short-term stories over, honestly, about a decade. There's been few things that have lasted long enough to be considered long-term, and most of the time when we got those, it was the only thing happening. Hopefully with this role, we have longer-term stories going on for multiple characters across shows, across brands, across weeks, across pay-per-views. Give me half-year storylines again. Give me year-long storylines again. I'm ready for it. And I believe that is all I have for AEW news this week, which is a great thing. I've got 2 bits of news left for you. Of course, and sadly, one of the news reports of this week is about Antonio Inoki passing away. Antonio Inoki was pretty much the founder of what is New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was an icon of the sport, not only in Japan but worldwide, a beacon for the sport in Japan. He had successful runs in the US, got a lot of attention put on Japanese wrestling. He was even a politician. And like I said, he's just an icon for the country, for the wrestling business. And you've seen, I'm sure, the video packages from WWE and all the posts online. We here at EPW obviously send all of our condolences to his family, and we hope that everyone gets a chance, if you've not checked out any of his work before, to go and check out some of the things that he's done, learn a little bit about him, and celebrate the life of a huge icon in wrestling no longer being with us. R.I.P. sir. Lastly, this week's story, the big one, in my opinion, and what I think a lot of people are talking about, is Andrade El Idolo and Sammy Guevara. If you don't know, Andrade, in an interview on, I believe it was Sunday, had mentioned something about having some issues with Sammy. Complaining. Well, he was saying that Sammy was complaining and that it caused a little bit of heat on Andrade for Andrade hitting too hard in a match. Andrade was explaining his side and basically making it sound like Sammy was just complaining for the sake of complaining and that he wasn't very tough. Sammy had tweeted something previously but hadn't put any names, basically subtweeting. Andrade ended up tweeting back to him saying, you should say it directly to me instead of hiding behind it, and called him out. Back and forth ensued. It basically insinuated that when they met up on Wednesday for Dynamite, they were going to fight. Now, that is apparently what transpired. Not a full-fledged fight, more so of Andrade spinning Sammy around and shoving him and starting to throw a few punches. Andrade was sent home because of this. Now, when I first heard this news, I thought this had to be placed on Tony Khan a lot, because how do you see these tweets and still let both of these men be in the same building at the same time, knowing how they're feeling about each other without having some kind of extra security or without somehow separating and making sure that they can't be near each other? what has been discovered through the reports through Wrestling Observer, through Sean Ross Sapp, and other various sources is that both men were brought into the office by Tony. Both of them assured Tony that there would be no fight. And then, right after they left, pretty much, that's when it happened. So, it's not all on Tony then, obviously, at that point, as I had suspected, but it is still a really terrible situation, and it really put a damper on things. I will get to that part in a minute and my feelings on it. However, I want to add the extra layer into this conversation in that Andrade has appeared on social media, retweeting things, commenting at people's tweets, a few things of note of himself, saying that he's unhappy at AEW, even insinuating that maybe he wants to leave. I guarantee the thought process, as everyone else is assuming, is that he would go back to WWE. Obviously, that's where his wife is. Vince isn't there anymore. Triple H is in charge. Triple H booked him well and seemed to like him. So, yeah, I guess maybe that is the implication that all of this from Andrade's side. Yeah, there's a lot here. So I'm trying to gather to set this out how I feel about this appropriately. I hate this situation for so many levels. On the AEW front, I hate this because we were supposed to be celebrating the 3rd anniversary of Dynamite. 3 years of this alternative product that has come along and has easily become the number 2 in the US especially, but I would dare to say potentially worldwide in viewership and in talking and wrestling related news and facts and figures. And instead, we were stuck talking about this. This is right off the heels. I say off the heels. It's been over a month. It's been 2 months of the Elite and CM Punk stuff. But we had Eddie Kingston and Sammy. We had CM Punk and we had the Elite. Now we have Andrade and Sammy. We're having these problems backstage. It's not good. It is not a good look. This is not good PR. And I get it. I get that this is not a Tony thing. Tony's not advocating any of this. Tony's not pushing this to be a work. So it's not WCW 2000s when we have guys where we're turning stuff into works or we're letting people go off of the cuff. However, could you imagine what WCW 2000 would have been like if Twitter would have existed? It would have been this tenfold. That is my biggest worry right now. We might not see this on the shows. We might not incorporate this kind of stuff into stories. And AEW might not advocate for these things, might not like these things happening. But AEW is not doing enough, in my opinion, to rein their talents down. I'm not saying to restrict them from what they can and can't do and should or should not say. I'm saying that they should put in some kind of implementation of some sort of rules, of a spectrum of things that was like, hey, if you start, going into business for yourself, quote unquote, or you start saying these types of things, or you start doing things that's putting down the company, and it hasn't gone through me, that this is me being Tony in this situation, that it's not, a part of the storyline or a part of the gimmick or a part of a work or something like that. If this is not something I've approved and this stuff is going, there's going to be fines. There's going to be suspensions. There's going to be consequences. I don't care what your conduct is. You can tell the world exactly how you feel if you want. But if you are being detrimental, if you are causing problems, if you are basically dragging down the product in which I am paying you to work for, then we're gonna have to do something about this. I'm pretty sure that works with a lot of other jobs. It's not that it's taking away the freedom of speech, but it's saying that there are consequences, which is how it works in the real world. Everyone can say whatever they want at any time. They can. But there are consequences to some of those things that you could say, to some of those things that you could do. That's how it works. A job is no different, and that's what these guys are. They're paid to work for AEW. So if they're going to make it look bad, they should be punished for it, in my opinion. Now, I especially think that it doesn't look good on AEW that Sammy has been involved in 2 of these instances in the last 2.5 months. I also think it's terrible that he was in the main event match, was not sent home as well. I get that he didn't land a punch. However, that's not an excuse when it comes to the way that he conducted himself. Especially, it could be looked as antagonizing a little bit. But it also isn't a good look that he got the win on the main event of the anniversary show. I don't think that's a good sign to your roster, especially those who were on Andrade's side saying that Sammy was causing these problems. You've got to think on the fly sometimes, and in this situation, I just think it wasn't the move. I don't think it was a good call, and I'm really concerned as a fan. I'm really worried for AEW because ever since All Out, it has felt taxing being an AEW fan because of all the extra chaos and disarray and frustrations that have been keep getting reported and keep coming out, and situations that keep happening within the company. I saw a Reddit post and they kind of said it in the best way. I didn't know entertainment was supposed to feel so tiring, and sometimes it does. I feel like I'm an AEW diehard. I basically got to the point where I wasn't watching WWE at all anymore because I had AEW. But ever since All Out, with these problems, with these issues backstage, with all the changes that have had to be made, working on the fly, and seemingly nothing set to turn the corner, just all right, let's calm down and regroup. It has hurt things. Tony needs to have some kind of enforcement about the way that he handles things. I know he's a fan. I know he's friends with these guys, but he's also their employer. And I hate saying things like that because it feels very Vince McMahonish and total control and needing to rule people and whatever. But at this point in time, I think he needs to step up and lay down the law and be a little cold towards some people and handle things like a business, like it should. And as things get a little better and morale starts to improve and these kinds of things start to dissipate, then you can relax a little. But you have to pull up your tough guard and put on your game face when these kinds of things are going on, or else you're not going to last long. That's just my personal opinion. I will add one extra little factor in here that does not have to deal with Andrade versus Sammy, but is just my thoughts on AEW for the week. I saw in a report that Tony Khan has said that ROH, the TV deal, he keeps wanting to make it happen, but that Warner Brothers is wanting to go off these metrics of these ROH pay-per-views, how many they've been bought, and how, it's been a record success. But I think that's temporary. And the reason that I feel that way is ROH has become bigger and a huge success because we know it's together with the AEW umbrella. There's potential for AEW wrestlers. There's potential for old ROH Hall of Famers and stuff to come back in. Is the ROH Hall of Fame a thing? I you know what I mean. Legends of ROH. But these are spikes because there's not a current show and we're waiting to find out more news and we're getting these interesting matchups. I don't know the way that Tony's about to go with things, but I feel like ROH is not going to be as big of a deal as AEW once the dust settles, because AEW was Tony's baby, ROH is his like side project. So once they get the TV deal, I feel like ROH is going to be like the C show in the AEW hierarchy. And is that going to continue to make the pay-per-view buy rates be records? I'm not so sure of that. And so it makes it feel like it's he's looking for a one-time TV deal, not thinking about how I'm gonna structure this so that it's a constant and a recurrent thing. And if we're going by pay-per-view metrics, it also would look like it might be a one-time deal, because by the time that deal's over, those pay-per-views probably aren't going to be as booming and successful. That's just my take on it. I by no means have any expertise in business, and I don't claim to try to have any expertise in business. I am just a fan of the product. I see how things are, and I see how the past of wrestling has shown up, and based on all the information that I have observed, gathered, and have seen happen in the past with other companies, I don't think that's a great model. So yeah, those are all of my big pressing AEW thoughts, and that has been all of your news for the week. So let's get into the top 5 wrestlers of the week. All right, guys. Again, as I said, I apologize for this being so rough and rugged and dirty of a episode. That, you know, technical difficulties happen. I really wanted to get this episode out to you guys, so we're just going to run through the top 5 wrestlers of the week. We're going to go to these predictions, and we're going to call it an evening. I think I kept you long enough with the news information, so just going to kind of roll in through it. And again, I appreciate y'all for listening. And I'm sorry that it wasn't the way that it normally is. And I'm hoping that by next week I'll have it all figured out and we'll have it back the way that it's that I've had it designed. So top 5 wrestlers of the week. Number 5, Solo Sikoa. I think that they're highlighting him very well on SmackDown and Raw right now. And he picked up wins in both shows and is showing what he's made of. And I think they're relying on him already pretty heavily. Those are all good signs for me for a new talent. So yeah, he's number 5. Number 4 this week is Jamie Hayter. You can clearly hear it in all of her matches and every match she's involved with, and every segment with the women's division that she's involved with. The crowd is super behind her. I think they need to turn her face. I think they need to get her away from Britt. I think they need to make that a story. I'm hoping that we get there after this Saraya stuff. And yeah, she's number 4. Got a win over who I have as number 3 this week, which is Willow Nightingale. She had a good showing against Jamie Hayter on Rampage. Then she picked up the win on Wednesday night's 6-woman tag match, and is also now Jade Cargill's challenger for Battle of the Belts for the TBS title. AEW, if you have not signed Willow Nightingale, what are you waiting on? Give us the graphic. Put it up. Willow Nightingale, All Elite. Make it happen. Number 3 of the week. Number 2, MJF. It's his first match back. It's against Wheeler Yuta. It was a great back and forth. Don't know if it was a hint of a heel or of a face turn, but it looked like there was already maybe some issues between him and the Firm, as he looked like he was gonna show Wheeler Yuta some respect, but that ended up not happening. William Regal shut down the Firm attacking Wheeler Yuta, and MJF left the ring. But great performance on his first match back since re-signing. Showed that he hasn't really missed a step, and also dude's looking even more jacked than he already did. So go MJF, number 2 this week. And number 1 is the Acclaimed. Not only did they win a triple threat match at Rampage last week for their belts, but National Scissoring Day on the anniversary show by far was the biggest highlight on that show. The crowd was losing their minds. Everybody loves the Acclaim. I don't know what more I can say. The Acclaim already were on this list when they won the belt. They have been great for a long time now. It's finally being appreciated more and shown. And yeah, these dudes just have it. Everybody loves the Acclaim. Scissor me daddy ass. What all can you say? I want the shirt. I want to wear it. But yeah, they're number one wrestlers of the week this week. Excuse me. Now let's go to the 3 predictions. Let's wrap this up real nice and get you guys ready for a weekend filled with a lot of stuff tonight. We have SmackDown tonight. We have AEW Rampage and Battle of the Belts. We've also got Bound for Glory happening tonight. So if you haven't looked into Impact Wrestling, you definitely should do so. If you are an Impact Wrestling fan, I know you got to be hyped for tonight. Looks like it's going to be a great show, but this is a lot of wrestling in one night. Then tomorrow we have Extreme Rules. Very busy 2 days for wrestling. So yeah, hopefully we can all enjoy it and it be a good time and not a chaotic mess like some things have been this week. So the 3 predictions. I think the Wyatt 6 will debut by Survivor Series. I think Bray Wyatt debuts at Extreme Rules, but I think it's a new faction. I think it's a stable. I think this Wyatt 6 that he has pushed for so long has some girth to it, some beef, some tread on the tires, so to speak. And I think there's going to be 6 people between male and female superstars who are with Wyatt. He might be a part of the 6, the Wyatt 6. But I think we're going to get a new debut every week or so leading all the way up to Survivor Series until we have this new complete dominant faction. Who will be in it? I have some speculations, but I want to leave that open to interpretation for now. The prediction is that Wyatt returns at Extreme Rules and starts new people joining him to form the Wyatt 6 by Survivor Series. Prediction number 2. Dark Order tonight win the Trios titles to celebrate Brody Lee. I have nothing against Dia de la Muerte and wait, that's Day of the Death Triangle. Sorry, my Spanish. I didn't take Spanish, but Death Triangle. My apologies again. I don't know why I said it that way, why I thought that. But they've been doing great. Pac's been doing great, but Pac's picking up double duty. I don't know which order things are going to go. So I think it's going to end up costing them the Trios titles, whether it being him being exhausted or interference onto Pac because of what he did to Orange Cassidy, causing a bunch of issues there. Either way, Dark Order pick up the Trios titles and we let the Dark Order kind of rebuild and get stronger, because I personally do not want to see them become nothing. They were such an important part of AEW, and I would hate to see them just fizzle out. Number 3. Prediction number 3. I think Tony Khan is going to sit out Andrade. There's all these rumors that Andrade wants to leave, that he wants to go to WWE. Obviously, Tony doesn't want that because he has the contract, all of these things. I honestly think that we are at a point where this might be the stand that Tony makes. He says, all right, you know what? I'm going to take the loss here. Whatever the rest of your deal is, I'm going to set you at home because you showed that you wanted to go somewhere else. You caused problems. And yeah, okay, that's on me. You're going to get the paid whatever the guaranteed money was while you sat at home. But you're not going to be on TV somewhere else. You're not taking this momentum with you. I'm, this is a business decision. I'm trying to keep my company going, and I'm not going to let it just be a pushover thing. And I'm not going to then try to book you to be really great when you're causing problems. So I think Tony, this will be the first person, I think Tony is just going to purposely set them out for the rest of their deal. So yeah, that is my 3rd prediction of the week. Now, As I mentioned before, lots of wrestling this weekend, lots of wrestling tonight. Please go watch, enjoy. I hope you like this show. Please give it a like. Please review us. Please tweet me, tweet EPW, put it on the Facebook post, anywhere. Comment. Let us know what you think of this. My apologies for no bells and whistles this week. A little bit of a rough cut. I explained it all multiple times. Sorry, but it just really bugs me as a technical person. That really bugs me that I was having issues with that. And hopefully we get more to a normal flow next week. But I've been LBJ, and I hope that you all have enjoyed this, and I will talk to you later.
Everyday pro wrestling, they can never be you. Listen to the podcast for the people, the best show that's here, so listen in. Let the knowledge begin, the opinions, the lesson, yes. By the fans, for the fans, not many in this can understand, this the podcast to show you who I am, Conrad Cushman, the legend in the plans, please listen every day to the showcase, the opinions and knowledge that anyone can take, showing you how it is done, proving I am number one, what a legend becomes. This is now my time to show you that I am here. This podcast just to make it loud and clear. By the fans, for the fans, not many who's here can understand everything pro wrestling, they can never be you. Listen to the podcast here for the people, the best show that's here, so listen in. Let the knowledge begin, the opinion and the lesson, yes. Everyday pro wrestling, they can never be you. Listen to the podcast for the people, the best show that's here, so listen in. Let the knowledge begin, the opinions, the lesson, yes.